Okay, greetings again. My name is Jesse. That's the only name I will be using in any kind of media production or writing or anything of that sort. I come here this morning on April 18th, approximately 7:45 a.m. Central Time in El Paso, Texas, United States of America, um, to speak on the issue of immigration reform. My personal story is that I was born in Mexico, in the border city of Ciudad Juarez, and when I was 4 years old, my parents put me in a car and headed towards El Paso, Texas. And I was waved through by an immigration officer and have been in the United States of America since then. Uh, I knew of immigration concerns related to me as a young person, but as a young person, do you really, how much do you know and how much do you pay attention? When I was 18 years old, I received a letter from what used to be known as Immigration Naturalization Service asking me to clarify my immigration status or get out of the United States of America. It had been, I think, when I was 15 years old to that time, it had been a really stressful point in time in my life, and that was just added stress. I did what I had to do to fix it. Fortunately, I found my way to a lawyer who knew what she was doing and who fixed it within a month, and I became a uh, permanent legal resident. Well, according to the passport, I'm an alien. It's it's strange to look at this issue because I don't look at this issue as a foreigner. I don't look at this issue as an immigrant. I've spent the majority of my time in the United States of America. I enjoy the United States of America. I think it's the best governmental system and society. I live in the border town of El Paso, Texas, USA, and I get to see the mess that Mexico is. And I've always said that Mexico is what the people of Mexico have made it. And that's an admonition for any people of any country. Your country is what you make it. Um, Now, here is what's supposed to be the Gang of Eight immigration policy. And I'll read from where I think, I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm not going to go into specifics. I already know what's going to happen to you because I've seen it before. When I say it's going to happen to, I mean Americans. I've seen immigration reform many times throughout my 47 years, and what always ends up happening is that illegal aliens always get what they want, and the American people have to pay in the problems in society and have to pay the financial price for it. But this thing starts reading that the passage of this act, oops, there we go, technology not being, passage of this act recognizes that the primary tenets of its success depend on securing the border, the sovereignty of the United States of America, securing the sovereignty of the United States of America, and establish a coherent and just system for integrating those who seek to join American society. El Paso, Texas is a border city with it borders Ciudad Juarez. And I would have to tell you that it is not secure. The American people spent a lot of their tax dollars um, building a iron gate, an iron fence that separates parts of Mexico from parts of the United States of America. There are, well, I'm not gonna. There are enough drainage tunnels between El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez that illegals use every day to come into the United States of America. They haven't been filled in with cement. They haven't been closed off with an iron gate. They haven't been, other debris has not been moved in the way to block those tunnels. So you can build all the iron fences you want. Um, those drainage tunnels exist between El Paso and Juarez, and they're used on a daily basis. That's the first point I would make about securing the border. It's a joke when your politicians tell you that they have secured or are securing the border. I can tell you, for living in El Paso, Texas, that's a lie. Um, One of the things that I noticed, I have never been in any of my jobs or businesses. I have never been locked up in a windowless office. I've always been out on the street. Most and today, as I conduct my business, I'm right there at the point of entry, as the people from Mexico are coming into the people from the Mexican city of Juarez are coming into the American city of El Paso, Texas. And one of the things that I've noticed in my business when I'm sitting there waiting for customers is that there's a certain amount of presence of customs, border patrol, and even ICE. But there's times where they completely disappear. I'm not seeing. In fact, the first thing that wakes me up, I find things to do in while I'm sitting in the taxi waiting for customers. And the first thing that will get my attention is that there is no traffic noise. There aren't any vehicles or border patrol running around in circles. There aren't any bicycle border patrols, running around in circles. And it is usually this time of absence of border patrol officers that you will see large groups of illegals moving through the street that is right there in front of the taxi stand. And it happens so much that it cannot be a coincidence that at the point in time when there are no border patrol circulating, patrolling, large groups of illegals uh, are moving. It's almost like if somebody said, get all the border patrol agents out of that area so we can move these illegal aliens through. It is just too coincidental to just leave it up as to the what do you call them, the coyotes, the people who bring them here, to be that smart and know when there aren't going to be any border patrol patrolling. So on the issue of your government keeping you safe, um, and protecting the borders, I'm sorry. I live here. I'm out on the curbside. I'm looking at this stuff going on. Um, Another thing that happens in El Paso, Texas, is you will hear stories of customs officers being arrested because they were taking money to allow drug-filled cars to move through their checkpoint. You will hear of border patrol agents who have been arrested because they were charging illegal aliens to move through their checkpoint. Um, there is what I call sympathizers in the customs office, in the border patrol office, ICE, even in local law enforcement, El Paso Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, El Paso County Sheriff's Department, State of Texas Police. And by sympathizers, I mean is that they know they're encountering somebody who should not be in the country, but they turn their back because they feel bad for them. They bought into the politics of poor little immigrants. And instead of doing their job, they just turn their back and allow these people to come into the country. Um, so that's the third point. To secure the United States of America in the issue of illegal immigration, you would have to stop every single person from coming into the country. And the government, your government, is not interested in that. Again, there are tunnels, drainage tunnels that connect Ciudad Juarez with the Mexican city of Ciudad Juarez with the American city of El Paso, Texas. And those drainage tunnels are being used every day for illegals to come into this country. It hasn't stopped. I don't know why the news media keeps reporting that there's been a reduction in people coming in this country. Every day I see that's a lie. Every day I see new, what some people are calling democratic voters. Um, and again, um, you have sympathizers, and you have this strange circumstances that when a large group of illegals are moving through downtown area of El Paso, you can't find one border patrol agent. I just think that's too coincidental. Now, moving on with this, it states we have a right and duty to maintain and secure our borders and to keep our country safe and prosperous. As a nation founded, built, and sustained by immigrants, we also have a responsibility to harness the power of that tradition in a balanced way that secures a more prosperous future for America. United States of America was built by people from Europe. The United States of America uh, was built by Chinese labor, um, Indian labor, slave labor, uh, immigrant labor from Mexico. But America's built. You know, there was a time that it was nothing but wilderness. Now it's a modern, civilized, industrial complex. America is built. There's no need to have large amounts of labor, immigrant labor, to continue to build America because America is built. Now, of, you know, the responsibility the government has is to the people of the United States of America, a country that is built. I would like to tell you that every single person on planet Earth is a nice and decent person. However, all of us know that we cannot make that statement. And what I can tell you about the people of Mexico is that they don't meet high moral standards. We, in the year 2013, have become a human race with very little morality. And before you start arguing with me, I would like you to evaluate your driving behavior. Do you speed? Do you run red lights? Do you drive through stop signs? Do you harass your fellow, you know, travelers by rushing up to their bumpers and honking your horn and driving around them and telling them off? There is so much liberty to be a vulgar individual in our modern day society. But having said that, you know, you should hear the attitudes. The the problem you have, or the challenge you have, is that you're never going to see people of Mexico as I see people of Mexico. You're never going to hear the rhetoric, their negative, harsh, critical rhetoric of the people of the United States of America. You're never going to hear their justification for their immoral acts. You and I have the same brain. And the brain that you and I have is the same brain that the people of Mexico have. And our brain allows us to understand good and bad, and their brain allows them to understand good and bad. They're very well aware of what they're doing when they're entering this country illegally. They're very well aware of what they're doing when they have a tourist visa, but they're coming to the country to work as maids and gardeners and construction workers. They know that what they're doing when they go to lie to the welfare office. You know, I don't have to read the bill. I really don't. I have seen America deal with the issue of illegal immigration, well, from Mexico, for the majority of my life. And it always comes down to the same thing. Illegals get what they want, and the American taxpayer has to pay for it. Now, the motives of the politicians. There is no compelling reason for the American person to be concerned about illegal immigration or illegal immigration reform. The average American person right now is concerned about how they're going to pay their bills. There are a lot of people in the United States of America who are unemployed and who would love a job. Um, I can tell you, because I live in a border city, that all people from Mexico do is water down everything and destroy everything they touch. In El Paso, Texas, of the United States of America, and I mention the country because you got to understand when you're dealing with the internet, you're dealing with the whole world. Just try to be as accurate as possible. But if you're going to try to get a job, a basic fast food restaurant job, you're competing, you are competing with 1,000 people from Mexico. There's a practice of having your child in the United States of America, then running back over the border, and that child gets raised in the Mexican system. That person becomes an adult, all of a sudden, you know, they want their American rights. Now, on that issue, I gotta state this, however. I have heard people say that they want to remove the American birthright uh, from children that were born in this country for no other reason than to be what is called an anchor baby. You know, to be an American, and by having that American child, the rest of the family can come over. I consider American citizenship a great um, prestige. It is a great title of honor for those people who can call themselves American citizens. And to cheapen it by um, messing with it and trying to take it away from people who, regardless of how they earned it, um, I think cheapens the great honor that the title of American citizen has. And I know people who have tried to introduce legislation to say that children born of Mexican in American soil should not be considered citizens. The thing I'm going to say is it cheapens the great title of honor, and it shouldn't be done. Now, you got to deal with reality. You got to deal with the reality that there's a certain mindset, a certain philosophy, a certain attitude in the people of Mexico that basically states, I'm going to do what I want because it is convenient to me. There was I can't remember what it was, but a whole bunch of politicians started echoing the quote, "We are a country of laws and not men." And as I was saying, there is no compelling reason other than the politicians wanting to do this. And all of us understand that the Republicans, for some odd reason, it came out of the election, the presidential election of 2012, convinced that the reason they lost is because they didn't have the support of the majority of Hispanics in the United States of America. And ironically, the one thing that this president and the Democrats hooked you know, their claws into is that there is a need, a compelling reason for illegal immigration reform. I'm going to tell you the basics are that the only reason they want uh, immigration reform is because those companies that use cheap labor are demanding it. It has nothing to do with your well-being. You're a hardworking, productive member of American society. They don't care about you. When I say they, I mean the politicians and the lobbyists of private industry that is manipulating government to um, to have illegal immigration reform. And the worst part about it is that you're being lied to by the same people that are telling you to trust them because they're on your side. Marco Rubio's not on your side. Ted Cruz is not on your side. What is that? Rand Paul is not on your side. This so-called Gang of Eight is not on your side. The people who are on your side are the people who will say enforce every immigration law on the books, round them all up, and deport them. Those people are on your side. You cannot have a society. I have here my little, and I'll start with that point. But you cannot have a society of members who do not hold high moral standards. Every society that has members with poor moral standards collapses. When I concentrate on what is a moral standard and that we should all meet, an example, I have to go to the Ten Commandments, and I am encountering, I am in, I'm hearing the attitude of people of Mexico. And it doesn't even meet the standards of the Ten Commandments. I'm going to see, I'm going to attempt to find, and I say attempt because the internet just doesn't work. But to me, the issue is important because yesterday, the strangest thing is yesterday, let me see here, I'm just going to work on my, well, okay. I'm going to work on my system here and try to see if I can find the Ten Commandments on the internet. Trust me, I've done this before, and rarely do I get what I want out of the internet. But the ironic thing is that yesterday, someone identifying themselves as an FBI agent came to my work site and spoke with all the taxi drivers about us being able to help, you know, with the criminal investigation of the bombings in Boston, which I thought was strange because El Paso is just about as far from Boston as you can possibly get. I don't see how, you know, um, how there was anything that we could possibly offer. Let me see here. Okay, maybe I did find what I'm looking for, but the one that I want that I always use, here we go. Number 10. Let me see if I can highlight it. Aha. 10th commandment. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. When people from Mexico cross into this country illegally and start lying to welfare offices, they are covering and coveting anything that is thy neighbor's, specifically thy neighbor's tax dollars. Okay? Number 8, thou shalt not steal. Again, when people from Mexico come into this country legally and go to the welfare office, they are stealing from all the American taxpayers. And I can go down, through all the commandments and show you examples of how, okay, how people from Mexico don't hold a high moral standard. Let me make my case. For a very long time, I have noticed the attitude in the people of Mexico that states because business people are corrupt, because politicians are corrupt, because criminals exist, then I can do what I want. Because they do what they want, I can do what I want. I can steal electricity from my neighbor. I can take my neighbor's water rights. I can cross into the United States of America illegally. I can lie to the immigration office and get a temporary visa or a permanent alien resident visa. And with that, I can go to the welfare office and I can lie to them and get welfare. You're not going to tell me that what I know is not true. I live in a city where all day long this is happening. I live in a city where I see people coming with their tourist visa with a full intent of going to a home and working as a maid or as a gardener or as in a construction site. One of the things in El Paso, you have the legally established family member who offers construction services and whose employees are illegal, but he gets away with it because he pays them all in cash. Whoever hired this person, whoever subcontracted with the legally established person, gives that person a check. He takes that check and cashes it at a bank, and then he pays off his workers who are his family members and his friends, or friends of family members. You're not exposed to this. I see this every single day of my life. And again, because of sympathizers, this is permitted to happen. Now, the illegal employee, okay, the man, is attached to a woman, is living with a woman who has children, who is on welfare, who is on food stamps, who's in government housing. And when they ask her about her husband or the man living in the home with her, she will say, well, no, he doesn't work. And if you were going to, you know, conduct a proper investigation, you would never find a paycheck. You would never find Social Security, uh, you know, monies being taken out of a paycheck. You would never say this person was this Social Security number, you know, has been having this company make contributions to their Social Security, their Medicaid, and their federal withholding. Because again, individuals getting paid with cash. And this corruption is permitted to happen uh, every day. Your society will crumble if, for one, and this is a great admonition, we who live in America need to challenge ourselves to maintain high moral standards, to not run red lights, to not drive through stop signs, to not speed, to not harass the other drivers that are around us. Um, we literally need to get our lives in order. You know, I didn't want to come and do this video essay because I said that I was going to finally concentrate on mental health and helping people get through their mental health hardships and find a peaceful life. But even that is attached and associated to this because so many people are working hard to build America, and then you have those people who are working hard to destroy America. Again, there is no compelling reason to put the needs of Americans, second to the needs of Mexicans. The elected officials of the United States of America are supposed to be working for American citizens. They are supposed to be doing what is correct and right for the people of America, not the people of Mexico. Okay. And again, the people of Mexico coming into your country are not honest people, are not decent people, are not coming here with a good intent. They're not leaving a country that is war torn and they're refugees escaping, you know, uh, imminent danger. They are coming here because it is something that they've been told they can do, and the people who have been telling them that they can do it are the American politicians. Okay. everything that is going to come along with legal immigration, the American taxpayer is going to pay for it. That's seen it every single time. It literally ends up in the hands of the American taxpayer. The increase in crime, the problems in public education. They're not disciplined individuals. They're not people who come to listen to teachers. They're not people who have parental involvement and understand that they need to behave correctly in a public education system. They're people who, again, have been raised to believe that because everybody else is corrupt, they can be corrupt. They can be criminals. They can steal. They don't have to live according to the rules that the rest of us live. And I see it every day. Again, there isn't anybody who's going to tell me that I'm wrong. I have been living in the border city of El Paso, Texas, which borders the Mexican city of Ciudad Juarez, for over 40 years. I've never been in a windowless office hearing news reports, and the only information I have comes from news reports. I see it every day. I hear it every day. I hear the anti-American rhetoric every day. I hear people bragging about how they're screwing the the welfare office, the food stamp office, and I think you have a moral obligation to stop them. You cannot be a party to their immorality. And again, really, who's asking for it? The politicians. Why are the politicians asking for it? Does it make sense to you that Republicans who are supposed to represent people with a conservative philosophy, conservative values, are going to support them when they push for illegal immigration reform? If these Republicans pushing for illegal immigration reform are going to lose the support of conservatives, this isn't going to help Republicans win. You know, why would you support Republicans when Republicans keep giving this president more money to spend? Why would you support Republicans when Republicans cave on every little issue? It takes individuals to stand up and say, we're going to filibuster. It takes Republican individuals to stand up and say, we're going to filibuster in order to stop all this insanity and overspending. Why would you want to partner with the president and the Democrats to continue to spend the hard earned money of the American people irresponsibly? This precedent, and I was going to say this president and this Democrats, but the reality is this president, this Democrats, and these Republicans have overspent $8 trillion with the foolish idea of trying to help people. That cannot make sense to anybody that you would have to overspend $8 trillion to help 300 million people, approximately 300 million people in the United States of America. I'm going to say again, if you gave each one $1 million, all you will have spent is $300 million. And I'm not advocating that government give people money, because when government gives people money, people become lazy and stop working for themselves. However, the financial reality is, if your real goal was to help people, you did not have to spend, you would not have had to have spent $8 trillion or overspend $8 trillion. That's what the deficit, that's what the national debt is, that the government has overspent. We who look at this keep using the word spent. No, they have overspent. You have the departments of government, and you can't properly finance them because you're continuing to overspend. That's insanity. There isn't going to be a stop to illegal immigration from Mexico. Again, I drive the border, I see that tall iron gate that is rusting, and the reality is that right under that gate are drainage tunnels that are being used by people from Mexico to come into the United States of America. They don't have to cross the Rio Grande. They just got to go through those drainage tunnels that connect Juarez to El Paso. How can you say that the government is serious about securing the border when they are aware that these tunnels exist and they haven't done anything to close them off? They haven't gone to the manhole covers in El Paso, Texas, and welded them shut, or gone into the tunnels and filled them in with cement, or you know closed them off at the end with a metal gate or something just to make it difficult for them. I was driving through the one of the streets that's literally right there on the border where that iron gate is, and I was counting the holes that were cut into that iron gate. And you don't cut that iron gate with a hacksaw. You don't cut it with a you know wire cutter. You cut it with a torch. And of course, I'm asking myself, whoever cut these holes had to have at least invested an hour. Or where the heck was the border patrol during that hour? On the issue of securing the borders, they're not going to. And again, you have a lot of people in uniform, customs, border patrol agents, uniforms, regional law enforcement, city, county, state, who are sympathizers and who look the other way. They know what they're dealing with, but they've bought into the whole "oh poor little immigrant," and they're even against the people who want a strict enforcement of immigration laws. The politicians are being manipulated by the business lobbyists. That's it. That's the only reason that Republicans and Democrats are pushing for this, because these businesses want these cheap labor. It is no benefit to America. There is no benefit to America to have 11 million new legal residents. There's no benefit to financially. There is no benefit to society. These are not innovators. These are not scientists. These are not engineers. These are the people that Mexico did not want. And as far as Mexico, the political leadership of Mexico is concerned, they wish they would not return back. You're getting the worst of Mexican society. A perfect equivalent would be when uh, when the Europeans sent all their criminals to the island that ultimately became known as Australia. That's what in Mexico is sending you, the worst of the worst, and you're buying into it. I don't get. I have spoken with so many people. I was telling this to a customer yesterday. How is it that people who are born with all the advantages, opportunities, privileges of being an American citizen can complain and whine like they've been raised in some third world nation? What kind of crazy person do you have to be to have the birthright of the American legacy and be complacent? You make out of your life what you want. That's what I was telling the customer is the spirit that you have is a spirit that will carry you throughout life. If you have a good spirit, you will find good things to be involved with, and you will use those good things to build a good life. If you have a bad spirit, then you're going to go down the wrong road, and you're going to find things to get yourself in trouble. But then, you got to understand that the constant, uh, you know, messaging from the liberal news media does work into some people's psyche. And then I was thinking about, there a long time ago, 11, 12 years ago, I wrote a paper about the war of opposition, where the only reason people oppose you is just to oppose you. It's not they have a better argument. It's not that they're intellectuals who have done the research and understand a better way. It's just sheer petty opposition. A lot of people who are opposing the conservative movement are doing it for no other reason than this childish, petty opposition. They hate you just to hate you. There is certain sicknesses, illnesses. I've studied psychology. I did finish my bachelor's. I was watching this useless documentary about some guy who grows up to be a, a sodomizer and murderer, and everybody's offering their opinion. There's even some guy who some researcher that goes off on the Judeo-Christian philosophy, because here's this little guy who's been abused in the prison system and comes out to be a murderous thug. And of course, the person asks the rhetorical question, well, what kind of Judeo-Christian society allows for this kind of mistreatment of a human being? And of course, my response is, all you have is one example. You can't, you know, you can't denounce a whole, ideology because one person was harmed, and then there's no actual, cause and effect between the Judeo-Christian society and what happened to this person. But you have people who are easily manipulated by the media. And a lot of what people think, and I tell you, I have, let me give you, I think one of the worst examples is this young white guy, 25-year-old white guy from New York, Anglo American, again, 25 years old, hasn't lived, doesn't know anything. Came down to Mexico. Um, I forget what his reasons were for being in Mexico. But he gets into my taxi to go to the airport, and I can look at a person and say I want no conversation with this person. I'll turn the radio on; they can listen to the radio. But then he starts singing to me, the poor politics in Mexico and all how these poor little Mexicans suffer. And I start to put him in his place, you know. Start to tell him, listen, you really don't understand that these people are raised not to follow any social order. These people are raised not to follow the law. These people are raised not to have any personal morality, any personal ethics. They have convinced themselves that because everybody else is corrupt, they can be corrupt. Okay? And then he starts to correct me, this little 25-year-old white American twit. Uh, Starts to correct me. 2 degrees in psychology. Me, I have 2 degrees in psychology. Uh, I've lived in the border town of El Paso, Texas for over 40 years. I've written, I don't know how many articles, posted them on the internet. I'll go ahead and admit that when I started to write, it was as if I had never attended a university in my whole life. But the more I wrote articles, the more I remembered about, grammar and spelling, which is I'm not something that that's why I came to video, because I don't have to worry about grammar and spelling. Anyway, literally I am a person who pays attention. And one of the things with me is you may disagree, but you can't disagree that I don't believe what it is that I am promoting. I believe in everything because I've seen it. But here's this person trying to tell me that I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. And I'm like, and I'm not giving them the conservative spiel, the rhetoric for the conservative movement, because the conservative movement doesn't even understand what it is I'm talking about. They don't even understand that people from Mexico are raised to be immoral and unethical. And they literally have this drilled into them. It's okay for you to be corrupt because everybody else is corrupt. Okay? And I'm I gotta tell you, I hear that a lot in Americans. I hear that a lot from people in America. And American culture, in my opinion, is close to collapsing. You have politicians who don't care what you say. You know, Sarah Palin keeps saying common sense, you know, policies. And a person with average intelligence would come to this little political debate and say, "You're wrong," to the Gang of Eight. And the reason that they would tell the Gang of Eight they're wrong is because you're not going to you're not going to maintain a healthy, stable society when you allow the people who break the laws of society to be rewarded. You know, it's very, very simple psychology, very simple behavioral psychology. When you reward a behavior, the behavior will continue. It's that simple. When you reward illegals entering the country illegally, they will continue to enter the country illegally. Very simple psychology. You cannot fight that kind of reasoning. When you punish the behavior will stop. That's also basic behavioral psychology. But let me go ahead and close this because I don't plan to to spend my whole day on this. Again, uh, politicians are not interested in the people of conservative movement. Republicans, um, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, any other Republican trying to promote this idea has no interest in the hardworking, tax-paying conservatives of America. In my opinion, they're being manipulated by business lobbyists, and businesses only want cheap labor. Labor they can manipulate, labor they don't have to provide insurance for, labor they can pay the least amount of money to, labor that can be literally maimed and broken and thrown in a garbage can and you rush somebody else into. Um, all of this, the number 11 million, man, you don't know how wrong that number is. Try saying 45 million. Is not going to make America better. Giving 45 million illegals from Mexico that are in American society the right to stay in America is not going to make America better. You're not going to get the best innovation. You're not going to get the best ingenuity. All you're going to get is a bunch of people who have always had the attitude, I can get what I want because everybody else is corrupt. And what they want is a free ride because they've been told. If you watch if you read the newspapers from Mexico, if you watch the television news from Mexico, they go on long, long stories about every government benefit that a person can get, and the person paying for it is the American taxpayer, and that's a threat to America because at this, well, let me see here. Just noticed a misspelling. Okay, and that's a threat to America because at the moment, America's experiencing an economic crisis. At the moment, you have a president in the White House who doesn't understand that you cannot keep spending. Okay, and again, there's no compelling reason for American society to want to reward all these illegals and punish the American taxpayer. There's no American society is not in danger because of these individuals in the society. They are in danger and they should be asked to leave or being forced to leave. But society's American problem is an economic problem, is a political problem, is that the politicians no longer care what the people have to say. And when you have politicians who no longer care about the will of the people, they start to do foolish things and they start to listen to the lobbyists and the people who donate to their campaigns, and ultimately society suffers. The collapse of Greece was specifically because the politicians thought they knew better than the people, and the politicians didn't want to listen to the citizens of Greece. Okay, and then again, for society to exist, its members have to hold high moral standards. And this is an admonition of not bringing people into your society who were raised to believe that because everybody else is corrupt, they can be corrupt. This extends to the reality is that all of us who are fortunate to live within the borders of the United States of America need to become better people. you can always have the negative attitude. You can always let that liberal news media kill your positive spirit and fill you with a negative spirit. News is all about everything that is wrong. That's what the news is about. You're never going to hear a news story about something that is right. And if you hear one news story about something that is right, it will come after 1,000 stories of everything that is wrong. So it's not hard to understand why so many people have a negative attitude. So many people have a negative attitude because their media is based on the negative. And we can all be people, who are sarcastic and cynical, and who happen to believe that everything that MSNBC, CNN, ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, or all the other, radio stations spewing the liberal mindset is correct. Or we can recognize that we're fortunate to be in a society that's absolutely free. That what we make of our life is what we make of our life. And the only impediment is our conviction, our stamina, and our wisdom. This society doesn't limit you in anything. This society gives you the opportunity to get your first 12 years of education, such as it is, but you get it. And if you dedicate yourself to yourself, then you take an interest in what your history teacher is telling you, your English teacher is telling you, your algebra teacher is telling you, and you become educated and you use that education. You know, every single student with a bad attitude in early education needs to understand that the only real person they're harming is themselves. Every person in society needs to understand that the only person they're harming with their negative, cynical, skeptical attitude is themselves. Nothing is totally bad and nothing is totally good, but it is not productive to go through life with nothing more than a head full of negative ideas. You can't build that way. You all you're gonna do is become a laughing, you know, lunatic. And if you notice, the current president of the United States of America cannot stop that sarcastic laughter. And here he is laughing at everybody that believes in a university education, everybody who believes in building a business, everybody who believes in working hard at raising good children, everybody who believes that, you know, that doing the right thing is correct, you know, and I've never seen America in such dire straits. But as much as people want to point the finger to politicians, this country belongs to the American citizen. They are only approximately 1,000 people. What are the rest of Americans doing? You know, I hear a lot on the radio that the United States of America is supposed to be a center-right nation. It doesn't look that way. For me, a nation of people who are center-right in philosophy is a nation of people who would find a way to earn an income and wouldn't give up on themselves. It would be a nation of individuals who would recognize that they're better off being positive, optimistic, and realistic, and pursuing a good life with good deeds. America's in crisis. Yeah, America's in an economic crisis, but America's in a moral crisis. I can understand that life can be difficult because I've had a difficult life, and I can understand that people would be burned out and want to give up. I know what learned helplessness is. I know that you can be beat up so many times that you just don't want to get up anymore because I can't remember a day of my life that I didn't have to deal with some kind of conflict. But, not, and I don't put myself over anybody, but I can say that I haven't given up. I haven't decided to stay home asleep and wake up at 1 in the afternoon and not go out and look for work and not keep, earning an income. Uh, the only way this country can continue, the only way the United States of America, which is a country that is needed for the balance of security in the world, is for her children to recognize they have great personal responsibilities. And yeah, you're frustrated and you're exhausted and you're wondering why you work so hard for. Well, if you have the opportunity, and there are children around you, pay attention to them. We have to keep working hard at the good things. We have to fight the good fight. We have to continue to fight the good fight so the generations that are coming up behind us could have an opportunity at a decent life. We were blessed, we were fortunate to have been to have found ourselves in the freest country on the face of the planet and to have at our disposal all the advantages and opportunities that freedom, liberty, and independence offer. Yes, we live in a society of negativity. We don't have to, we can choose not to follow that negative ideology. And we can choose to see how our own personal strengths can help us in building the life that we want. It is important, it is almost imperative that all that hard work and effort not be compromised by individuals who don't hold high moral standards. It is an error to think that you will be easily dismissed by rewarding people who have violated the borders of America. Many countries have found out the hard way what happens when the members are allowed to deteriorate morally. Afghanistan didn't just happen. Iraq didn't just happen. Iran didn't just happen. And I can keep going through, every country, the African nations. They happened because the members of that society gave up on society. When you reward people with poor morality, you're endangering your society. I'm not asking for a moral purity test, but let's recognize behavior matters. You are telling the world who you are when you violate a nation's borders. You're telling the world who you are when you lie to the welfare office and the food stamps office. You're telling the world who you are when you're in a country illegally and you're working and you have employees and you're paying them with cash so their wives can continue to go to the welfare office. Behavior matters, and behavior is a measure of personal morality. The person who robs banks isn't an okay guy who just happens to rob banks. No, he's a bank robber. Has no morality, has no ethics. For same line of reasoning, a person who violates the borders of a nation has no morality, has no ethics. And the person who runs a red line and runs through stop signs and speeds and harasses the drivers around them has no morality, has no ethics. Behavior matters. Behavior is an indicator of morality. You want a good society, you need to have members with high morality. And I refer to the Ten Commandments, but I'm not talking about religious morality. I'm talking about the contract that you and I are supposed to have with each other, which is basically I don't harm you, you don't harm me. But when you run a red light, you are harming me. When you run through a stop sign, you are harming me. When you're speeding on the interstate, you are harming me. Here in El Paso, Texas, you would say every Saturday morning, every Sunday morning, the newspapers, the news stories are about all the people who killed themselves driving while intoxicated and all the people that they killed. So what you do matters, has an impact in my life. What the people who are coming in this country illegally are doing has an impact, a negative impact on all our lives. And I'll be honest with you, I don't see the compelling reason other than politicians who are being manipulated by lobbyists want this to happen. And you have to be an individual who puts your country first and says that I will only stand by the highest moral standards that help society succeed. I think that's why I can keep going on, but why? And the only thing I gotta ask is the majority of you Americans is why is it you have allowed yourselves to be manipulated emotionally into thinking that you're doing something wrong because you're expecting people who have come into this country to live up to the standards of following the law and respecting their neighbors. To me, real immigration reform would be to require every single person who came into this country illegally to go back to Mexico, and if they wanted to come back, they could go through the proper application process. That would be real immigration reform. That would be the politicians respecting the American citizens, and this would be the American citizens respecting their country. Thank you for listening, and I wish you well.